So you describe this avatar of a person who is like, oh, but it's really bad. This is a dark journey. Like, yeah, I understand. What is that coming from? That understanding? Could you share just a brief sketch of your journey and what that's looked like for you, coming out on maybe the other side of it, or still, in the midst of it?
A brief sketch of how messed up I am. Sure, no problem. Let's do that. Let's talk about that. Now, it's hard, Clint, to map that out. I would, I mean, I've had experiences that I think have all culminated in just this thing that's been going on. And I like that because I haven't scripted this at all. It
Mm.
just is sort of coming. But I think probably, long story, very long story, very short. Probably it was a culmination of things family related and also professionally related that um, everything that I sort of, the anchors or the foundations were just, they were crumbling pretty quickly
Mm.
and happening over a series of several years. And I write about both. Well, I write about the family matter involving my daughter and the sin of certainty. She gave me permission to talk about it. And my job, I talk about that a little bit, and the Bible tells me so. So it's out there,
Hmm.
these things. But just to bring them together, those things were sort of colliding at the same time. And I wound up leaving where I was a teacher before at a seminary, and it was 6 months of bliss, of just being out from under something where I just knew I didn't belong, and it was difficult, and people were sort of after me on a regular basis. And to be free of that, I was exercising. I was so happy sitting under trees. That lasted about 6 months, and then everything started crashing down because I the structure. This is what's so frightening about being on this journey. The thing that gave me structure to my faith was taken away.
Yeah.
My faith was sort of on autopilot for many years because I was in a system that required a pretty strict subscription, and you just sort of do it. And that's not dishonest. It's just you're not on autopilot. You're not thinking about it. But then leaving, I began to understand that everything that was holding my faith together is now gone.
Mm.
It's not there. So I remember the scene. I'm standing in my bedroom, just looking out the window, and this little voice inside of me goes, "Well, Pete, what do you believe now that nobody's telling you?"
Yeah.
Right. And my answer was, I haven't the foggiest idea what I believe. And I didn't. And I began not just entertaining on a sort of a comfortably distant kind of manner, but really existentially deep down inside. What if there is no God,
Mm.
right?
Hmm.
What if none of this makes sense? What if we're all just making this up? And I was sort of in that for about a year or so, I'd say, in various degrees. But there were times when I remember once lying on my a sofa in my little office at home, and just lying there, just mourning the fact that I'll never sing another Christmas carol again. Silly little thing, but
Mm.
we raised kids and we had traditions and things like that. And so I was mourning a narrative of my life that was very familiar and not just comfortable, but satisfying. And that was pretty much all taken away. And when it started going away, it went away very quickly because I could see the pieces connecting, and I'm not going to lie to myself. So we just sort of went along with it. And I think what helped me, I don't want to say come out of it, but more pass through it and come out differently on the other side, is just people who understood this whole process.
Mm.
And it really helped that I knew people who were very much into contemplative Christianity or some sort of a mystical expression of Christianity
Hmm.
that transcended some of the rationalistic arguments I had in my head, or scholastic kinds of things, academic things, which I really value, but not bypassing, but not allowing your left brain essentially to control all of reality. That's really what it came down to for
Yeah.
me. And I was able to let go of that need for certainty. And it's, the sin of certainty it didn't come out for about 6 or 7 years, but that's when that book was born, when I could start seeing the pieces connecting.
Wow.
So you said, I caught a little word in that story that intrigued me. You said, and we passed through it. And I think you meant maybe your family. Because um,
Oh,
you have
that
children
was a
and
Freudian slip. Maybe it's my split personality or something.
yeah.
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 But it got me thinking, to your point at the beginning with the academic professional part and the family part,
Yeah.
I am not just this isolated individual. Like I'm deeply embedded in these relationships. And when I
Hmm.
was and still am kind of going through some of this stuff, I have a spouse. I'm raising 4 kids right now. And,
Hmm.
um,
Well, you are someone else's anchor in a way. Like
right.
for your kids,
Right.
as they are forming a
Right.
map of the world, where am I? Who am I?
Hmm.
Is it safe? They're looking at dad. What does dad say about this? What does
Right.
dad think about
Right.
this? So,
I mean,
Right.
there's a very real sense where like my wife, Sarah, is just, she's along for the ride that I'm on, whether she likes it or
Hmm.
not. Like like to your point,
like if she was ready to start
Yeah.
asking questions, what? They've come into the house, honey. So
yeah.
the questions are
Hmm.
here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
So I didn't ask a question, but I guess my question would be,
No, I think
yeah.
I see the question. It's a really common one, and it's an important one because we're not just individuals. I mean, you have to do what you have to do, right? Because you can't be a good father or husband if you're lying to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, how do that deal with other people? See, in my sense, the we was not a reference to my family because when I left Westminster Theological Seminary in 2008, give me a second here, my son was 21, my daughter was 18, and my other daughter was 15 or 16. So
Okay.
they weren't little kids anymore.
Yep.
And when I left, I I I came home kicking the dog for a few years,
Mm.
and the thing is like when I told them I was resigning, they said, "It's about time, Dad. I mean, the place is killing you." So it wasn't really an issue. And then the whole the I guess the transformation, so to speak, of my own personal faith over a year and a half. I didn't really talk about it to many people,
Mm-hmm.
and plus, my son was in just out of college and living on his own, and my other daughter was in college, and one was in high school, and what does she care about her dad, that kind of thing. So it wasn't the same kind of thing, and we were, I mean, we were never, our family and Sue, my wife, we were never, a fundamentalist family. So the baggage wasn't there,
Mm.
and but so there was unlike many people, there are no family implications for me of all of this,
Mm,
which I am very happy about because I know people whose families are torn apart over
Mm-hmm.
these kinds of things, and that's a different kind of question. Like, how does the person who's on the move handle the fact that you go to a certain kind of church and your
Yeah.
kids are happy there and your wife or husband has friends there, and that those are difficult questions to answer, and I think each one has to answer those in a way that makes most sense in their lives.
Mm.
mm-hmm.
Can
I
I?
wish I could give a blanket answer to it, but I
Right.
can't.
Yeah. Well, can I ask that you say at about a year and a half of sort of when you hit theological rock bottom and started to rebuild,
Hmm.
when you found yourself staring out that window thinking, I don't know what the heck I believe, how did you
Yeah.
then, even that next week, how did you carry on aiming yourself through life? Like, if none of the Christianity stuff is true, and then how should I move in the world? How should I relate to people? What should I be aiming at? What should I be moving towards? What did you fall back on?
Right.
How, just
Well,
how bedrock
well,
did we
one
get?
thing, yeah, I mean, pretty bedrock. I mean, I remember vaguely just lying in bed for long parts of the day and
Wow.
just thinking,
Wow.
or just reading things. I think I mean, this is my temperament, but I think at that point I just took it upon myself to say, okay, we're going to do this, let's do it. And I started reading a lot of things that were of a more like a generally spiritual kind of nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I got interested in, um, gosh, now I forgot what it was. Not the Enneagram, the other one that nobody does anymore. I'm an INTJ,
The Myers
that
Briggs.
Yeah.
personality. Thank you. Yes, but just trying to explore myself,
Mm-hmm.
which is really good Christian advice, by the way. I mean,
Mm,
I think many people don't do that, but and just trying to understand myself and what makes me tick. And I was thinking of leaving the whole field of Christian writing or Christian teaching, and because jobs are hard to come by, and I had a severance that was going to last me for a while, so I had to think about that. And I was thinking of becoming a private high school like administrator or something like that
Yeah,
for a
right.
while, and but that never really would have worked out for me. I would have been fired probably inside of a week.
Right.
But I think it's I don't know what I don't really know how to answer that question
Okay.
because I just kept moving,
Yeah.
and maybe that's the German in me. There's this wonderful German saying, "Du kannst, denn du sollst." You can because you have to.
Oh,
I
that's
don't
great.
have an option to lie in bed all day.
Yeah.
I don't because
Mhm.
I still have responsibilities at home.
Yeah.
And was I depressed? I don't. Maybe I was more in shock,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
trying to process it all.
Yeah.
But little things happen. I mean, one little thing, if I can sort of relay a little story, I think I talk about this in The Sin of Certainty, but one was coming across a story of Mother Teresa on the internet that helped me a lot. I tell my college students what helped me most was meeting a woman on the internet, and they don't think
Yeah.
that's funny at all. So,
Yeah.
um, and it was a story of John Kavanaugh, who was a moral philosopher, I think at St. Louis University, which I think is a Jesuit school, but he was having his own faith crisis, and he went to visit Mother Teresa in Calcutta and met her, and she said, what can I do for you? And he says, you can pray for me. She goes, how can I pray for you? And he goes, pray that I have, what's the word that he used? Not, not really, not more like conviction or certainty, or pray that I have some centeredness. And um, she said, no, I will not pray for that. And he goes, well, why not? Because what you're looking to hold on to is exactly the thing you have to let go of.
Wow.
And I read that, and but I kept going. And then he said, well, you seem to have a lot of sense of centeredness, conviction. And she said, I've never had that sense of certainty in my life, but what I've had is trust.
Mm.
So I will pray that you trust rather than seek that kind of an anchor for yourself. And I read that, and I just stopped and I stared at the screen and I said, that's it. That's where I've been going wrong. I've been trying to wrap my head around something, whereas this journey really was more about learning to let go of wrapping my head around everything and respect my head but not live in it,
Mm-hmm.
and take cues from other people who throughout the history of the church who are very wise and have passed through these things, and getting acquainted with things like the Dark Night of the Soul and St. John of the Cross and some others in the medieval period. And by no means expert, just casually reading and talking to people. That's all you need.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to become an expert in any of these things. Just become acquainted that there are other ways of doing this besides the way that many churches sort of assume you should be doing it, which is being sure of everything you believe. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't, you've got a problem you have to work out.
Mhm.
Mm.